I'm joined here tonight by the former Prime Minister of Israel, Naftali Bennett. And Prime Minister, it's great to have you here. When you look at the likelihood of this, do you believe that it is inevitable that there will be a war with Hezbollah?
It's not inevitable. We can still prevent the war. It's up to the other side. Hezbollah has to stop its mischief. Look, players in the region have been seeing Israel taking a lot of hits all around for the past few months, sometimes not responding very strongly. And they might misinterpret this as weakness and that it's okay to hit Israel. So I want to be very clear. We will hit back. It will be a decisive blow, one that they cannot recover from if they continue down this route.
Do you think it would be decisive? I mean, Hezbollah is not the same as it was in 2006 to 2008. I mean, they have quite an arsenal to them. What would that look like if Israel is fighting wars on two different borders?
First of all, we can handle two wars. Again, we don't want it. I've spent decades fighting Hezbollah in Lebanon. Nasrallah, after the Second Lebanon War, he publicly stated that had he known what our reaction would have been, he would not have started the war. He said that. He should be smart enough to not make that mistake again.
Can I ask you about something President Biden said in recent days? Two different comments that seem to contradict one another. First, he told Time magazine that, and the quote was, there's every reason for people to draw that conclusion. When he was asked if Prime Minister Netanyahu is prolonging this war in Gaza for his own political gain. But then when he was asked yesterday at the White House by a reporter if he thought Netanyahu was playing politics with the war, he said he did not think so. What do you think? Is Netanyahu extending this war to protect himself politically?
I hope not. I very much hope not. I don't think so. I will say that the war is being conducted very slowly, half-hearted. This is not how you conduct a war. If you want to win a war, you have to continuously hit the enemy and not turn it on and off like a light switch, which is what's happening right now. And that's why I think both the American administration and Israel should encourage a rapid wrapping up of this war by going in, getting Hamas leadership. We're getting close. We've sealed the border with Egypt, so there's no more smuggling of arms. We can win this, but we need to get the job done.
You said you hope he's not, but do you think he is?
I don't know what goes in a mind of someone. I do not believe that Prime Minister of the Jewish state would play political games.
You don't think Netanyahu would play political games?
On something of life and death of this magnitude, I would hope not.
He's agreed to come and address the U.S. Congress. There's some back and forth on when that date is actually going to happen. But I was reading today in an Israeli publication that there are some families that are upset that he would come to the United States and address the U.S. Congress while not addressing his own people at home and going and visiting with those who were attacked that day and witnessed this. Do you think it would be inappropriate for him to come visit the U.S. Congress and leave Israel to do that?
I think what matters are actions on the ground, okay? And if we're vacillating for months and months and unclear whether we're fighting a war or stopping a war or what's going on, speeches matter less. What matters is what we do in Gaza, not what we say in Washington. I'm here to fight the media war. There's enough people that can do it. We need to win the war, get it done with.
So you think he should be more focused on what's happening on the ground in Gaza than addressing U.S. lawmakers?
I think it won't harm to speak to the lawmakers, but that's not what's going to change the reality on ground. What will change the reality on ground is uniting Israel and executing this war in a decisive way.
I have to ask you about what's happening with this U.S. military-built pier in Gaza. There was a lot of frustration and concerns about people in Gaza not being able to get food and basic necessities, concerns about famine. So the U.S. military was going to construct this pier to the tunes of hundreds of millions of U.S. taxpayer dollars, with U.S. soldiers constructing this. It's essentially not gotten very much aid in. There was a storm that kind of has made the pier deteriorate to where it couldn't be used for several periods of time. Why is it having to get to the point where they're building a pier that barely works to get aid to people that's not getting to them in a wholesome way? when there's all these border crossings, all these land crossings that Israel could open and let aid get into Gaza that way?
All those openings that you mentioned are open.
Every
right
single
now,
one?
they are open. Right now, the amount of food that's entering Gaza, over 400,000 tons, that's 3,000 calories a day per Gazan. Right? You gain weight if you eat that amount of food.
But you're
there
not
is
saying
a problem.
Gazans are all getting,
No,
Gazans are not getting 3,000 calories a day.
Well, Hamas is siphoning lots of that food, and that's the problem. The problem isn't the entrance into Gaza. The problem is that Hamas is stealing the food of its own people and then selling it in black market, and some people can't afford that.
But they're
that's
stealing
the problem.
food from the pier too. I mean,
yeah, they
the
are.
problem still exists.
Look,
People are still starving.
Well, I think it's much less than what you suggest. I don't think there's mass starvation
Even if there are thousands of people starving. I mean, there's over a million
I know, and that's why you need to defeat those who are starving them, which is Hamas. It's
but what
Hamas
if they starve in the process? I think that would be the counter argument to that.
So what should we do?
That's my question.
If Hamas,
for you.
all right, so we need to defeat these thugs, this mafia that's killing not only Israelis, but its own people and starving its own people. Because they've developed this new methodology of war where they do everything to increase deaths of Gazans, starve Gazans. So you'll be asking me these very questions. And the focus and the pressure needs to be on Hamas, not on Israel. They're the ones stealing the food. There's unlimited amount of food entering Gaza. We're not putting any brakes on that. That's not the problem.
And of course, everyone understands that Hamas is using civilians. They don't make themselves available for interviews to ask them.
No,
but
they
the
don't.
question is obviously
that's why we need to defeat them.
Responsibility, because that has been immense amount of pressure from the U.S., from other U.S. allies who are worried about what's happening to the Palestinians and the fact that they're not getting enough food and health care.
That's why America should help us defeat Hamas, because they're the ones stopping all of this. This whole problem will go away once they're defeated.
Prime Minister, it's great to have you here. Great to have you on set. We spoke right after the attack happened. It's remarkable where we are this far in, but thank you for being here and for taking our questions.
Thank you.
Great to have you. Still ahead, there are dark